2, 3, 4, 5. Even Stevens. There we go. Let's see. Looks like they're gonna need some tires on this thing too. Got some serious toe in and toe out going on here. All right. Well, if you haven't guessed it, today on Challenge to Build, we're on day 2 of the Mini Cooper. And first things first, getting it up in the air. And I'm gonna pull the tires off of it. Little tiny lug nuts. 17 millimeter. My good old Milwaukee shouldn't have any problem. These tires are Yokohama 175/50 R13s. And by the looks of things, she's got some camber issues and alignment issues. So we're gonna have to add that to the list of things to do and take a look at. A little tiny rotor, rebuildable front hub, brake pads look in good shape, but all this I'm going to just kind of go through this and grease this up, figure out how it all works, go through all the nuts and bolts and make sure everything's tight. This is going to be kind of a short video. My main goal with this today was basically just to get it up in the air, get the wheels off, and kind of get acquainted with the car. I have been kind of poking around it periodically throughout the day, and I mean, overall it seems like it's in pretty solid shape, but like I said in the first video, this build series is more or less just going to be kind of like a basic once-over on this car. Just some of the basic stuff, tune-up, oil change, going through the suspension. I would like to flush out the brake fluid, points and condensers for the tune-up, plugs, one of the biggest things that I think we're going to have to tackle is the electrical. This car has been kind of tossed around a few times, and it looks like the electrical on this car has been messed with a few times to the point where it's going to need some love and attention. I'm thinking that this car probably had original glass fuses in it, but now they have converted it to a smaller ATC type fuse block. So in just a minute, we'll take a look up under the hood and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. But mainly just kind of getting acquainted, figuring out what things are, how things work, looking at normal wear and tear items. We got to get it running. I think the fuel pump may be iffy a little bit. Make some jumpers. We'll test the fuel pump, go through fuel lines, fuel filter, and things like that. Grease up the front end, the back end if there's anything here. It looks like there's a little bit of an oil leak. So we'll clean up that and see what's happening with that. We're gonna have to address some tire issues. This car has had some custom work on the inside as well. I would like to talk to her and see if she either has the original bucket seats or possibly if we could maybe get her to get some reproductions possibly and get this car. These seats, to me, in my opinion, look way out of place, and it would be nice to get the original seats or something of a reproduction back in it to make it look more original and not as tight in the interior. So really, there's not a whole lot going on up under the hood of this car. This is a 1275cc inline 4-cylinder. You heard me talking about the wiring issue. It looks as though whoever was up in here previous to me installed a really small fuse panel up here on the firewall. I don't exactly know what they did. They kind of hid some grounds. This piece of wire loom was on there. There's a ground here that needs to be connected. This Adele clamp is loose. There's apparently a wire sitting over here, which I don't know what it is. We have wires disconnected here. This is an overhead light, probably the dome light, and that's the wiper switch as well. So that would probably explain why neither of those are hooked up. We have some pieces of wire down here, look like they've been messed with, going from the distributor. Possibly a potential ground, maybe over here. I don't really know. Vacuum lines are missing off of the carburetor and the distributor for vacuum advance, so I got to figure out what vacuum port I need to run, if these run full vacuum or ported vacuum. As far as the wiring, I'm not exactly sure what they did, but it looks like they added a terminal block here, which I think this kind of looks poorly done. So maybe if, we had talked about doing possibly an engine swap, it might be one of them things where it might be advantageous for me to look in doing a small universal wiring harness for this and actually move both of these things. I think overall it would probably clean up the engine compartment if both of these things were under maybe the firewall inside the car. A little bit of rust and corrosion on the clutch master cylinder over here. This is the brake fluid reservoir, which is really low. So those are why I want to flush those fluids out as well. And one thing I noticed this afternoon is if you look down here on the throttle cable, someone got a little carried away with some JB weld and actually JB welded the throttle cable onto the throttle bracket. So that kind of is one of them things that's going to need to be addressed as well for safety and just for the sole fact of doing it right. That is definitely something that will need to be addressed. There looks like there's supposed to be a cover plate this goes right into, and that would probably explain why she said she smelled smoke and all kinds of fuel inside the engine compartment or from the engine compartment, because there is a big hole back here in the firewall. So a little while ago, I talked about the slop in the shifter. There's a lot of up and down movement. So I want to pull off this boot, pop this cover, and just see how all that's working down there. Maybe there's something I can adjust and or grease down under the boot to take care of some of this slop. They drove the car one time in the time that they've had it, and she said she smelt something burning, and then it stopped running, and since then they haven't been able to get it running again or fired back up to run. So that's kind of where I come into the equation. The CD player down here has been installed kind of willy-nilly. There's half-ass wires kind of plugged in down here, another cut wire down here. I would like to talk to her and see if we can kind of get this back to somewhat the original flavor, maybe, with a few custom touches. I feel like the dashboard, honestly, needs some attention. I feel like maybe this isn't the original dashboard. Maybe we could come in here and do some kind of maybe custom fiberglass dash and actually center up the speedometer and tachometer, so this way here it's more centrally located to where you're driving. I know this is kind of like the mini vibe here, but I feel as though this has already been messed with. There are some parts in the bin, and I think one of the original dash clusters is in here too. So I really feel as though the person who had this previous to them really did some work. And in my opinion, you know, I try not to cut anybody up for the work that they've done, but it definitely leaves a little bit of a mess for me to clean up. The seats, like I said, I'd like to try to find something smaller, maybe talk to her about putting some era correct like racing buckets. We talked about maybe entering this into a Grand Prix race in September. So I'd like to try to spend some time and actually get it prepped for the Grand Prix as well, and get them good exposure for the car, and also myself for my channel, and honestly just have a lot of fun with this little pocket rocket. So that's kind of where I'm going to leave it off for today. Just a short little overview of getting this thing up, getting the tires off, showing you some things that I found already just by, you know, looking through it. As far as the next phase of this, we're going to probably get more in depth under the hood. I want to talk to her, see what her thoughts and opinions are on where she wants this thing to be. Also the budget in which she wants to spend on some of the parts, possibly and hopefully get a hold of Jet Motors. Talk to them about their turbo kit that they have for this, and just continue working through it and seeing where this build goes. So for those of you who have watched, thank you. And I've challenged my build a little bit today. You need to get out there and challenge yours. I'll see you in an upcoming video. And I think I'm going to call it a night.